It's one of the things they keep stressing at journalism school, the importance of objectivity, impartiality, keeping the reporter's emotions out of the story. Easier said than done. In a world where bad news, war, poverty, terrorism leads the coverage, you'll be hard-pressed to find a journalist who succeeds in absolutely walling off their emotions and their opinions from the facts. And we live in the digital era. The internet has opened up an infinite space for a more partial, partisan style of journalism. So where will that leave old-school, analog-era reporting? Or can traditional journalism coexist with this new, more opinionated form? The Listening Post's Gauri Sharma now on some of the arguments for and against impartial journalism in the digital age.
According to the Oxford Dictionary definition, to be impartial is to treat all rivals and disputants equally. To be objective is to not be influenced by personal feelings or opinions when considering or representing facts. Most journalists strive for both, but should they?
Critics argue that impartiality can lead to a he said, she said style of journalism. I think that's a fairly simplistic application of impartiality and in fact is quite lazy journalism. True impartiality is about honestly considering lots of different viewpoints on an issue and letting the weight of evidence drive the story.
Scholars have come to say there's nothing called ultimate objectivity. And I think we're saying the same thing now about impartiality.
Forgive me. This is tough.
If you look around you and you report what is happening, as a human being, you will get involved. You know, it's by the nature of being a human being.
In 2010, CNN's Anderson Cooper was reporting on the ground in Haiti after the huge earthquake that ripped through the country. What viewers saw wasn't just a journalist doing his job. Cooper often got involved in the stories he was reporting.
Blood is pouring from his head. They hand him over the barricade. He's carried away.
Earlier this year, James Chow, a reporter with the Chinese broadcaster CCTV, couldn't contain his emotions while covering the missing Malaysian airliner, the MH370.
We had heard that some family could be leaving tonight to go to Australia. She hadn't been told that at all.
James. Thank you very much, James.
And in July, two reporters covering the same story, Hala Al-Safadi from Iranian channel Press TV and Al Jazeera Arabic's Wael Al-Dakhdour, both broke down live on air while recounting the number of civilians killed by Israeli airstrikes.
The whole thing is in the intent of the reporter, and if the intent of the reporter is to find out what's going on and not to get in the way of it and not to try and balance it in any way with his own or her own emotions or opinions, then you're onto something.
This type of journalism produces this sort of view from nowhere. Right now, for example, with this war we have on ISIS, we don't know where the media stands. What we do often see in the mainstream is that these retired military generals are repeatedly getting invited on to come offer their expert opinions on bombing ISIS, when a lot of these retired military generals have very close ties to the defense industry, and so they have a reason to want to be at war.
We need to put special operation forces in there.
It's very deceptive to not tell your audience or readers that that's the case.
But media outlets face a problem. Sticking to impartiality and objectivity doesn't necessarily make good business sense. Take the 24-hour news market in the US. The ones that have the highest ratings are the ones that have built their reputations on partisan programming. Fox News plays strongly to a conservative audience. Figures released by Nielsen's rating system for 2013 show that for the 12th year running, the network topped the chart with primetime numbers averaging 1.1 million. In recent years, MSNBC has recast itself as a liberal network with a strong Democratic viewer base. Its daily ratings stood at 640,000 last year. But MSNBC still came ahead of CNN, which prides itself with non-partisan, straight reporting, even though it doesn't do anywhere near as well in the ratings.
When it comes to an outlet like MSNBC, you know, they say they lean liberal, but in reality, it's more of like a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party.
And the Bush policies are the ones that put us in this rut.
Most people are, get that. I don't think it necessarily produces great journalism, which is not necessarily about just disclosing your opinion.
Fox News is not an objective news organisation at all. It's opinionated, biased, prejudiced, with a very small-minded view of this glorious, diverse world that we all share. And I think it diminishes the American television news audience. It diminishes the intelligence of that audience to just have opinionated journalism.
But news consumers are addicted to opinionated journalism, and the internet has allowed that to flourish. Publishing stories for an online audience has meant that journalists can be more transparent, building trust by linking out to their evidence and primary sources of information. Some of the names in this field include Brazilian activist collective Media Ninja, Ukrainian fact-checking website Stop Fake, and pro-Palestinian website Electronic Intifada. US investigative journalist Glenn Greenwald, who worked with former NSA contractor Edward Snowden to reveal the mass surveillance by US and British spy agencies, is another.
What Glenn Greenwald showed with the Edward Snowden story was that you can have partisan advocacy style of journalism and that the audience can actually benefit from that if it's done well. And what's really changed again in the digital age is that the internet has allowed journalists to lift the veil on the process of journalism.
Also because it's adversarial journalism, it's challenging power. And I think in the end that's the purpose of journalism.
The larger question remains, is anyone truly impartial? Can any journalist really separate their own opinions, emotions and ideology in order to report objectively? It's not a new debate, just a more prominent one, as all those voices on the internet combine to blur the lines in the world of journalism.
I don't think we've ended with the discussion on impartiality so far. I don't think we've ended the discussion on objectivity. I think all these discussions are going to be taking place still, and I think it's a healthy discussion.
The most important thing when it comes to journalism is holding people in power accountable. And I think that this idea of impartiality and objectivity actually ends up serving power rather than holding people's feet to the fire. I think that if you look at where journalism is going right now, you see, especially with younger people, they're more interested in independent media outlets and sort of in finding their own information. I think you can see that with the rise of social media. There's a hunger and an appetite for more honest reporting.
I still think that even with transparency, people really still rely on journalists to decode the news and distill information. The audience is still looking to a journalist to uncover information, but also to crystallise it for the audience. So transparency alone is not enough. Just linking to information is not enough. A journalist's job is still to assess the facts, to weigh them up dispassionately, and to come down where the weight of evidence exists.
More voices on the download now on balance in the world of journalism.
Objectivity and impartiality in journalism are the ideal, but we're all human beings. Therefore, our interest in a certain topic will start by listening to someone or having a point of view from something that we see. So our job as journalists is finding the whole amount of facts and giving voice to as many people as we can. Based on this, I don't believe that we can talk about objectivity and impartiality anymore, but about balanced and verifiable stories.